What would you do if a briefcase full of cash was sitting right behind you, wide open, and nobody was watching? Most of us like to think we do the right thing, but when desperation hits, well, that's when we truly discover who we are. This story will challenge everything you believe about human nature. All right, let's dive straight in. Picture this. Samuels sat behind the wheel of a luxury motor, his weathered hands gripping tight as he drives through the poshest part of town. 68 years old, been grafting his whole life, and still struggling to make ends meet. This chauffeur gig, it's his last shot at keeping his head above water. But here's the thing. His new boss Richard is proper paranoid. This bloke has been burned so many times by staff nicking his stuff that he doesn't trust a soul. So when Samuel, barely a week into the job, has the nerve to ask for an advance on his wages, well, Richard's alarm bells start ringing, don't they? Now Samuel's not asking for beer money or a holiday. The poor sod's desperate. His granddaughter's lying in hospital, fighting cancer, and the bills are mounting up faster than he can count. But Richard doesn't know this. All he sees is another employee trying to get their hands on his cash. That evening, Richard's nursing a brandy with his mate, proper wound up about it. They're all the same, he moans. Start off all polite and respectful, then before you know it, they're bleeding you dry. His friend tries to reason with him. Maybe the old fella S genuinely skint, but Richard S, having none of it, is convinced Samuel's just another chancer. Meanwhile, downstairs in the staff quarters, the whispers have already started. The younger staff are taking the mickey out of Samuel, placing bets on how long he'll last. Give it a month, one of them laughs whilst chopping vegetables. He'll be gone like all the rest. Samuel hears every word. But instead of giving them a piece of his mind, he quietly slips away to his room. Once alone, he pulls out a crumpled photo from his wallet. His granddaughter, pale and frail in her hospital bed. Just hold on, sweetheart, he whispers. Granddad's going to sort this out somehow, but Richard's already cooking up a plan. Okay, a test that'll expose Samuel's true colors once and for all. The next morning arrives, and Richard's ready to play his little game. He calls Samuel into his office and hands him an envelope stuffed with cash. Way more than needed for the shopping trip he's sending him on. It's a trap in it. Richard's deliberately put in twice the amount, just to see if Samuel will help himself to a bit extra. As Samuel takes the envelope, Richard's watching like a hawk, searching for any sign of greed in the old man's eyes. But Samuel's face gives nothing away. He just nods politely and heads off to town. Walking through the city center with his shopping, Samuel overhears two blokes chatting outside a shop. That's Alden's new driver, one says, puffing on his cigarette. Heard he's already after money. Bet you anything he'll be gone before Christmas. The words sting, but Samuel keeps walking. Every step of the way, he's thinking about his granddaughter. One missing tenner could mean a proper meal tonight, maybe medicine tomorrow. But it would also mean shame, something he refuses to burden that little girl with. When he gets back to the mansion, Richard's waiting like a spider in his web. Samuel places the shopping down, lays out the receipt, then counts every single penny of change back into Richard's hands. Not a bob missing. Richard can barely hide his disappointment. He was so certain he'd catch Samuel red-handed. Is that everything? He asks, his voice flat as a pancake. Yes, sir. Samuel replies, though you can see the exhaustion weighing heavy on his shoulders. That night, Richard's back to his brandy, moaning to his mate again. He gave back every penny. Either he's playing the long game, or his friend interrupts. Or maybe, just maybe, he's not like the others, Richard. But Richard's not having it. Thought everyone breaks eventually, he mutters. Everyone. So he decides to up the stakes. If politeness and small errands aren't enough to crack Samuel, then it's time for the big guns. The following week, Richard climbs into the back of his motor with a leather briefcase. He deliberately leaves it wide open on the seat beside him, stacks of cash gleaming like a proper treasure trove. As they pull away from the house, Richard pretends to have a kip while secretly watching Samuel's every move in the mirror. The briefcase is right there, calling out like a siren. Every bump in the road makes the lid wobble, flashing more green at Samuel. They stop at traffic lights, and even pedestrians outside are taking the mickey out of the situation. Wonder how long that new driver's going to last, one says to his mate. Old fool like him, working for someone like Alden. He'll crack sooner or later. But Samuel doesn't crack, not even a glance. His hands stay firmly on the wheel, eyes fixed on the road ahead. For a full hour, that briefcase sits there like a silent temptation, and Samuel doesn't bat an eyelid. When they finally reach their destination, Richard's almost frustrated that he can't accuse Samuel of anything. The briefcase remains untouched, every note exactly where it should be. That night, alone in his study, Richard's proper confused. Every man has his price, he tells himself, but Samuel's just proved him wrong. The old driver walked past enough cash to change his life without so much as a second look. But then, everything changes. It's late one evening when Richard's leaving a business meeting, knackered from hours of negotiations. Samuel's waiting outside as usual, reliable as clockwork. They're cruising down the motorway when suddenly Samuel's phone lights up, buzzing like mad. "Take it," Richard says, loosening his tie. Samuel hesitates, then puts it on speaker. A woman's voice fills the car, absolutely frantic. "Dad, it's happening again. She can't breathe properly. The doctors are saying it's really bad this time. You need to get here now." In that moment, Samuel's composure finally cracks. His knuckles go white on the steering wheel, his breathing becomes shallow and quick. "Please, not now," he whispers to himself, as if bargaining with God. "Who was that?" Richard asks, though he's already starting to piece things together. Samuel's voice trembles as he explains. "My granddaughter. She's got cancer. They're saying she might not make it through the night." And just like that, everything clicks into place for Richard. It's a salary advance, the exhaustion in Samuel's eyes. The way he'd returned every penny despite having every opportunity to take what he needed. This wasn't a man scheming for wealth. This was a grandfather watching his world fall apart. The shame hits Richard like a brick wall. For years he'd assumed loyalty was dead, that everyone had their price. But here was a man drowning in desperation, who still refused to cross that line. Without a word, Samuel changes direction towards the hospital. The urgency in every mile they cover is palpable. At the hospital, Richard follows Samuel inside, though he's not quite sure why. The smell of antiseptic fills the air as they rush through corridors where families whisper prayers and hope against hope. In the room, Samuel's granddaughter lies fragile against white sheets, barely breathing. His daughter sits beside her, holding the child's tiny hand, as if she could will strength into those frail fingers. Richard stays in the doorway, watching as Samuel kneels by the bedside, tears streaming down his weathered face. This image shatters the last of Richard's hardened heart. This isn't about money or greed. This is about love, pure and simple. The next morning, Samuel's called into Richard's office, still carrying the weight of the previous night. On the desk sits a thick folder with hospital paperwork stamped. Paid in full, every bill. Every treatment, every future appointment, covered completely. Samuel's legs nearly give way. His lips move, but no words come out. Richard S.'s voice is softer than Samuel S. ever heard it. "I tested you over and over, expecting you to fail like all the others. But you didn't. Even with everything you're going through, you never took what wasn't yours. You've shown me something I thought had died out completely." He leans forward, hands folded. "From today, you're not just my driver. You'll run my household, manage my staff, and your granddaughter, she'll get every bit of care she needs, no questions asked." Samuel's chest heaves as tears flood his eyes. He tries to speak, but his voice cracks completely. All he can do is bow his head and whisper through his tears. "Thank you, sir. Thank you," as Richard watches Samuel leave, clutching that precious photo of his granddaughter. Something profound settles in his heart. For the first time in years, he realizes that true wealth is unmeasured in the stacks of notes he'd been guarding so jealously. It's found in those rare souls who prove that integrity still exists, even when the world gives them every reason to abandon it. Richard hadn't just found an employee that day. He'd rediscovered something he thought he'd lost forever. Trust. Now then, if this story's touched something in you, don't just scroll past. Hit that subscribe button if you want more stories that remind us what really matters in life. Give it a thumbs up if Samuel's integrity inspired you, and share it with someone who needs to hear this message. Most importantly, drop a comment below. What would you have done in Samuel's shoes? Would you have been able to walk past that open briefcase knowing it could save everything you hold dear? Because at the end of the day, it's not the tests life throws at us that define who we are. It is how we choose to face them when nobody's watching.